Buenos nachos, and welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, we're going to revisit this Xbox which we were performing diagnostics on in order to determine what was causing the issue with it freezing. Why was I gesturing at the screen? Well, because it would freeze either with the black screen or you'd see a tiny little bit of the flubber intro if we were lucky. So we were diagnosing this console using heating and cooling, and we were able to make some progress, though it still had the same issue and it was kind of inconclusive. However, a couple of people in the comment section had recommended I try and take a look in the MCPX area and or even replace the MCPX. So that's what we're going to do today. Without further ado, let's begin. So unfortunately, this console is pretty much like, or it was almost ready to go. So I have to take the heatsink off and all this stuff here, which is unfortunate. So we're gonna head on over to the rework machine and remove the MCPX, inserting simulated footage of removal of MCPX over here. Alright, we're gonna try and give you a decent view of desoldering the remaining solder from the MCPX area. It beats seeing some fake stock footage of removing an MCPX from the donor console, which I've already filmed.
Do you have a console in need of repair or modification? Do you not have a console? Don't fret, we offer repairs and upgrades as well as refurbished ones. For more information, fill out the contact form on our website, nixelectronics.com.
Guess it probably wouldn't hurt to grab some tweezers to hold this in place. I've seen people cut little slivers that kind of match the size of this spatula tool. Alright, so we wiped away the spent flux, at least the majority of it. Now I'm going to spray this thing down with some alcohol and brush away any lingering flux that may still be here. And now we're going to blow the rest away. Alright, and this surface is now prepped for the replacement MCPX. Now that our replacement MCPX is all ready to go, we can prep this board. And there it is right there, our replacement. Only goes on one way pretty much. You have to be trying kind of hard to mess this one up, but that doesn't mean it's not possible. So there it is, perfectly aligned and ready to go. So we'll go ahead and start up our profile and we'll see you back at the Xbox. We'll go ahead and perform a couple of checks just to make sure nothing went awry. Alright, everything looks to be pretty good. Get it back into the console temporarily here. On the off chance that we're going to need to hook up a controller, we'll go ahead and have this USB port plugged in. I really don't like doing this because we're going to kind of mess up where all the thermal paste was. And of course the finishing touch. Well, we have picture on screen, so that's a good sign. I'm gonna have to turn this thing off, aren't I? Yep. You gotta have the control plugged in first. It's really strange. We can't navigate the menu. It's almost as if it's worse than what it was prior. So what can we conclude from what we've just seen? There's a possibility that whichever component was failing has completely failed, and this would be due to the heat generated by the rework machine during the process of the installation of the MCPX. Whether that narrows down the issue with this console, I don't know. Well, I had to take a break in between filming, and well, it's probably for the best because I was thinking of some ideas on the next things to try for this console, and well, I didn't want to release half of a video. That's a legitimate cough. We just finished replacing the MCPX with a used reballed one, and we're in about the same spot, maybe a little bit worse than what we were prior. So I think the next thing to do is, there are actually very few things that we can do left. You have either replacing, reflowing, reballing the GPU, or replacing each RAM brick one by one. I mean, to be honest with you, I do not want to check all the capacitors and resistors on this board to see which one is failing, because that's a needle in a haystack. You've seen how many components are on this thing, and it's a lot. So the next logical thing to do would probably be to either reball, reflow, or replace the GPU. Obviously is a better alternative than replacing each RAM brick one at a time until we figure out which one is bad. Anyway, let's go ahead and replace the GPU and see if that takes care of the issue with this console. We'll see you over at the rework machine. And so we're going to be replacing this GPU with a new one. Guess we'll let the machine do its job, and then we'll be back. And it looks like we're pretty much ready to pull the chip. No traces ripped or ruined. All right, we're gonna go ahead and use some Kingbo flux on this. Remove the old solder. There we go. Kind of interesting that a bunch of thermal compound made its way to the almost the center of the chip right over here. Let's go ahead and clean off this residual flux and any contaminants. One more wipe down with alcohol, and then we'll do a spray down with alcohol. Now we're going to use some flux, our trusty Amtech, the Steery flux. Of course, we'll make sure to put a lot on there because sometimes these solder balls don't like to adhere, and we don't want to have problems with this thing. And in the majority of cases, the chip will just align itself in there. So we obtained these GPUs from China. Ideally, you would remove this GPU from another Xbox that's known working, or you've determined has some kind of issue but is not the GPU. We'll start up our profile, and then we'll see you back at the testing table. So I've checked the veritable assortment of areas in the back of the board to make sure we don't have a shorted GPU, and best I can tell, it has attached properly, and we don't have any problems. Best I can tell. Let's go ahead and put that heatsink on, and the CPU one, we already hooked up our controllers and our buttons. We have everything plugged in, and of course the final step is to put our mod chip in. Well, it's fragging, so that could mean that either the GPU is bad, or this Xbox is cursed. Well, I gotta say, this Xbox is definitely taking a turn for the worst after putting that GPU on there. I think what we'll do is we'll reball the original GPU, put that on here, and see what happens. So we have the original reball GPU reattached into the console, so let's go ahead and put our heat sinks on. We did put the board in here already, just in the interest of time, because this video is probably gonna be very long at this point. Our Jafar X-Blast chip. Let's go ahead and try it as is, and watch that screen. All right, so we do have picture again, thankfully. I wanna try one more thing, even though I think it probably has nothing to do with this problem. It's just one of the other easy things that I can change out. Granted, the GPU is not an easy thing to change out. So let's go ahead and try this other IC real quick. So I'm pretty sure our issue has nothing to do with this chip right here, which would be the SMC. And then of course that's not to be confused with the MCPX. So we're gonna try and swap that out next. First thing we gotta do is remove this SMC chip, and we'll be doing that with our trusty friend, the hot air. And for inquiring minds, I'm going to be using maximum air and maximum heat because I want to go home. Not exactly my best lift, but it'll do. We'll of course set this to the side in case we need to put it back on. And you'll notice that even though I had a difficult time removing the chip with this particular tweezer, everything is fine. So what I'm gonna do at this time is renew these solder joints with some flux and some leaded solder. As you know, we can't have this day go by without using this soldering iron right over here. And it looks like we're in luck. Someone has put some more flux in this tube. And this is too much. Really need to get some kind of a brush or something with flux on this side. Maybe I have to bring my own bag of tools over here. I think this caffeine is really starting to kick in on me. So we have this board prepped. Let's go ahead and get our donor board, remove our donor chip. Man, it popped right off. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you every single step I'm doing. We'll go ahead and preheat this area here. I better stop messing with it. It's not perfectly aligned, but it's aligned. We're applying a little bit of pressure while we're heating it up with the hot air. I think we'll go ahead and go over this with a soldering iron, and we'll of course add even more flux, even though that's probably overkill. I think it'd be wise to clean up this flux. Almost went in there. All right, are we good? No bridges, right? Yeah, other than the chip being offset, I think we're fine. So let's go ahead and try this out again. The momentous of truth. We'll see if all of our labor has been for naught. So of course, we still expected it to boot. That was with the X-Blast chip. Let's try it with the Stellar. Doesn't look like it's going to make a difference. I'm pretty sure, yep, Xcode stalled. So at this time, we've done quite a bit to this console, and we've yet to resolve the issue. We've recapped the motherboard. We replaced the MCPX from a donor console. We replaced the SMC from a donor console. And of course, we tried out a replacement GPU, which caused the console to have even worse problems. Then we reballed the original GPU, and now we're back to where we were. However, controllers still don't work. I didn't realize it at the time, but I installed the incorrect MCPX version, and that's why controllers do not work. We actually need to do install the D1 version of the MCPX, which I'll most likely do at a later time. So this all said, I think the last thing to try would be to swap out each RAM brick one by one and see if that takes care of the problem. I definitely should have quit some time ago with what I'm doing here because it's an old console. It's probably worth like $20, but we already have a CPU on there, so it is worth trying. Anyway, if you found this video helpful or useful, please remember to leave us a like and subscribe, and thanks for watching. Until next time.